Bitch, I'm a mother. No drama, just exhaustion, deep exhaustion. Hey guys, it's Julesy. I thought it was important to sit down and have this conversation and do a video on my labor and delivery experience because I want to foster community around an experience that plenty of people have and are searching for answers and searching for other people to connect with and build with and come to a better understanding of how they want to pursue their own birthing journey. And because so many Black women in particular choose to keep their pregnancy journeys private, because, I'm an artist and I'm sensitive about my ish. And it's a very sensitive time in general, and the sort of judgment and way people just make comments, even on my last video where I announced my pregnancy at 37, and I'm announcing this very joyous, transformative moment. I don't think people were intentionally trying to be disrespectful, but it's the comments around, who cares that you were 37? Women have babies until they're 50. The sort of dismissive, like womp, 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 and then the baby mama comments come in. The sort of judgment that people maybe innocuously make can be very triggering for people, especially when you don't relate to the experience in the real time of it happening right now in 2023. Now, I do want to give a trigger warning in that and acknowledge that some of the language and the way I might talk about decisions that I made on my birthing journey may be triggering to people depending on the experiences that they have had. And so I just want to encourage people to please take care of yourself as you watch this video. I am not going to be pivoting to motherhood content like this, but I do think this conversation is important. But that's why I'm sitting here at 12:30 at night in the heat of exhaustion to do this video for y'all. And I am tired in my bones. I am exhausted in my bones. But that's why today's sponsor is right on time, is absolutely the right guy, because Care of Vitamins has really been helping and holding me down. As I am embarking on my breastfeeding journey, it has been very important to me that I get all the right nutrients, because all the nutrients that get pulled from my body to go into the breast milk are sort of depleting. And so it's very important that I have kept up my vitamin and healthy eating, but have really kept up my vitamin intake. And, if you follow me on Instagram, I had talked about my concerns around postpartum shedding, even though my hair didn't really grow much during my pregnancy. It was my nails that grew a lot. And my nails have absolutely, if you notice, I cut my fingernails down because my nails have been brittle and breaking off, and they were just getting in the way. And that was a sign to me also that I needed to re-up my vitamin supplements. But the prenatal pack that I had been taking, which was about 8 pills per day, they were huge. They were making me feel a little icky, so I was taking them at night, and I wasn't really feeling great about the experience. And so I was kind of hesitant postpartum going back to that level of vitamin intake. Now, Care of came along, and baby, it's actually 11 pills. But they're much smaller, and I absolutely love the packaging. It's great packaging. They come with a cute little quote. It's an easy tear open, and I love everything about this vitamin experience. I've been taking Care of for the past month, and I was really excited to take on this sponsorship because my brother's been taking these vitamins for the past year. And his cosign made me feel really good about trying these out. And for the past month, I have been taking these prenatals. My pack has fish oil, vitamin C, calcium plus, prenatals, probiotics, vitamin D, zinc. And it is literally, I took the quiz online. They ask all the right questions. As soon as they find out that you're postpartum, they ask you about your breastfeeding journey, and they hit the nail on the head with all the supplements that I was looking to fit into my vitamin intake. And I feel a lot better. I mean, I'm still tired because, babes, it's not even that I'm not getting sleep. It's just that I sleep in 3 to 4 hour wake windows with my kid. Take their survey and use my coupon code Julesy, spell my name correctly, to get 50% off your first order with Care of. I highly, highly, highly recommend them. Let me take my vitamins now. And you see, I'm really a mom because I got the mug cup with my water. Absolutely love it. And accessibility matters when you breastfeeding with one hand. You got to go over and grab that cup because the thirst hits you right in the middle of the feed real hard. Being a mother to a newborn has absolutely forced me into my plain Jane era. I've cut my nails down. Can't really wear makeup around them. Can't wear perfume. Had to get rid of the 30-inch bust down. Can't really wear anything longer than 16 inches. Got to hair off the shoulders, okay, at all times. Even my fro he be tussling with a little bit because he likes to bury his face right here in the neck. It got to be open range free and clean for my baby. It's funny, but I've also got a little bougie because one thing I picked up while pregnant was drinking sparkling water. I was never into it before, but now, oh my gosh. It's so refreshing. It's so good. I'm a huge fan. So I'm both a plain Jane and a bougie mom. And we just gonna go with it. But let's get into this labor and delivery story. I first want to start with talking about my doula experience. Overall, on my pregnancy journey, my goal was to live in the moment, to not have too many expectations because there's so many variables that go into this process. But my sister, who had given birth 10 years prior, was a big fan of her birthing experience around having a doula and having an unmedicated water birth. And so I too was excited for this opportunity to have a doula and a water birth. Now, when it came to the doula, I really didn't know what all to expect other than I was expecting a warm, fuzzy feeling of like the shared experience of womanhood and mothering and going upon this transformative journey with someone who was going to be able to answer all my questions and like hold my hand at least the week of. And we ended up cycling through 2 doulas. And in the end, I still am not really content with the experience that I had. I don't know how much of North Carolina having just really wonky laws around midwifery and home births and what's really a lot of kind of restrictions around who can participate in home births, how much that also shapes the way doulas go about their business here. But I guess like, in the end, I wonder if maybe it's just an issue of a lack of equity and them not, having enough resources and not being able to make enough money. The doula experience both the doulas we used it was their full-time job, but it just felt like they were just cutting a lot of corners, working their way around. And maybe, honestly, I wanted more of a concierge experience. I wanted more of a, here's my onboarding packet. Here's how you book your meetings with me. Here's what's included in the package that you paid for. If you would like any more, here's your options for pay per service. And here's how you do. I would have liked that sort of welcome package onboarding experience that I could always reference back to and set you up for how your relationship should go. And the first doula, there was no onboarding. It's like you pay your $400 non-refundable deposit, and then I'm getting like good morning text with a meme. Like she's some feckless nigga and I'm just a hoe on her rotation. And I didn't like that feeling. And so I had my partner also reach out to her because he's a lot more congenial, and I thought maybe I was just being in my head about how I was interacting with her, but he also wasn't a fan, so we decided to move on from her because, I need some rapport if you're finna be in my coochie the week of giving birth, okay? And so we ended up going with another doula, and I felt better about my experience with her, but I still didn't reach a point of satisfaction. And my dissatisfaction really came around our engagement with her postpartum, and that just kind of falling apart. During my pregnancy journey, she was never without her youngest child, and that wasn't really an issue, but I wish she would have wrapped that up into how she branded her service, and that, she's child focused and she has a young child and they will sometimes accompany her on visits, rather than her child always being presented as like an excuse, like in a last minute, issue. She would show up with him and it'd be like, oh, I couldn't take him to daycare today. It was always she couldn't put him in daycare for whatever reason. It was always a reason why she couldn't drop him off at daycare that day. And I'm just like, well, if you don't actually have daycare, girl, why even make it a thing? But postpartum, my child has a respiratory issues, and with RSV and strep throat being very rampant in the child care scene, especially with school age children, we had 2 postpartum visits with her that we have not fulfilled because the one that we scheduled, she sent a message the day of that, oh, her 2 older kids are sick, but she's going to have her toddler or baby with her. And we couldn't risk that. A young child that like puts their hands all over everything and gets into things. I just didn't want to risk the possibility of that getting my kid sick. And with my child's respiratory issues, respiratory infection is an automatic hospital stay. And so we ended up canceling our postpartum, and then we tried to book her for some night care services, like where you come in the evening to help with like household things. And day of, like, it was a lot of cancellations day of. We tried to rebook the postpartum several times, day of cancellations. Tried to book the night doula thing, day of cancellation. It was kind of like a running joke, like, okay, are we really going to book her and, shape our day around her showing up? Do you really think she's going to show up? And of course, no, she couldn't show up. And then the day of my delivery, when I like gave birth, she like disappeared. And I wish like an expectation would have been set at the beginning that, oh, if you have a hospital birth, this is when I show up. This is how much time I spend with you. But I was in and out of it. And I remember at one point she was there and then said, oh, I got to leave and I'm going to come right back. And then when I'm in active labor and things are about to like turn up, the question was, where's your doula? Where's your doula? And she kind of walked in when we're trying to figure out a position that I want to birth in. I don't know. Did I not pay enough for the level of service that I wanted? In the end, the doula that we went with was $1,700. It was about what I paid her. And if I do it again, does paying more alleviate the issues? I don't know. I kind of did want my hand held. I wanted the sisterly, like, kumbaya, let's get in with the spirits of our ancestors, I'm pretty unsatisfied with the experience that I was left with. But that's not to say that a doula isn't important. I just think that my dissatisfaction with the doula also leans into the overall dissatisfaction I had with my birthing experience. And I was kind of shocked that living in a major city in North Carolina would leave me with such limited options. But let's get into that. I wanted to have a water birth, as I said, based on my sister's experience having an unmedicated water birth, and everyone that I've known who successfully had water births had nothing but rave reviews to offer about their experience. So I was elated to looking forward to the prospects of birthing in the water, only to find out that there are no options for water births within a medical setting in Charlotte proper. There are no birthing centers here. You have 2 hospital chains to choose from, or you got to give birth at home. And the closest birthing center that offered water births is in Statesville, North Carolina, and that's about 45 minutes to an hour away from my house. And it was the Natural Beginnings Birthing Center, which is where I ended up signing up to give birth. And the thing is, because it's only one birthing center in the region, you again have to pay a non-refundable administrative deposit, and you have to get in before 24 weeks because they have a waiting list and they need to hold your name, and then you pay for your labor and delivery up front. So I received an expected bill of $1,600 plus the $400 or it's actually $500 for the administrative fee. And I paid that up front before I ever even saw a midwife at Natural Beginnings. And then once you sign up with them, you switch over from your main OB, you switch over medical care to them. I started going to Natural Beginnings after my anatomy scan, which happened at week 24. Because of my age, I was sent to maternal fetal medicine for my anatomy scan. Now, in the United States, when you're sent to maternal fetal medicine, you get a more in-depth anatomy scan or ultrasound versus if you were having an ultrasound at your OB's office. You can see, like, there's color grades for you to be able to see, like, how your child is feeding from the umbilical cord, the placenta, the blood flow. It's like really detailed information around what's happening in vitro with your child. And so I wasn't opposed to going to MFM, which is a shorthand for maternal fetal medicine, for my anatomy scan. I am grateful that I went, but as soon as I mentioned that I was going to natural beginnings and intended to have a water birth, the doctor reviewing my ultrasound immediately offered her caution. As I stated in my pregnancy announcement video, I think a lot of my experience on how my birthing plan went and the labor and delivery experience that I had was absolutely shaped by this uptick in discussion around the Black mortality rate with pregnancies. Recently in the news, the Olympic runner Tori Bowie, the autopsy from her death, she was discovered deceased within her home after a wellness check, and the autopsy came back saying that she had preeclampsia and had been in active labor when she gave birth. And so, it's a huge talking point, it's a huge conversation happening. And I believe last year the Aftershock documentary covering the Black birth mortality rate had just come out. And so I think because now this conversation is happening, I don't know that we've gotten to the point where productive resolutions has actually been met. Instead, what we are getting, and what my experience was that individual doctors were trying to do what they could within a medical infrastructure that only offers so much. And so interventions in this idea of being induced or having a C-section constantly came up within my pregnancy journey very early on. And the doctor gave me a long, and I don't think she was overstepping, but she definitely, during my anatomy scan, had a lengthy discussion about the benefits of utilizing interventions, particularly for someone within my demographic. And all I could say overall is that I had a healthy pregnancy. I passed all my tests. I had no issues. And I just didn't know how to feel, though, about the constant reference every time I went into MFM for an anatomy scan, because then I went back in at 32 or 34 weeks for a growth scan, that I'm being encouraged to consider interventions. And in the end, I did have interventions, and I don't really feel like I was given the proper tools to advocate for myself, the proper decisions that would allow me to have the birthing experience that I desired. I don't feel like I was really set up for that. I feel like rather, because of my age and because of this caution and this discourse around the Black women mortality rate during birth, it really wasn't about me. It was more so about this larger messaging. And I feel like you're just putting a Band-Aid on an issue. I'm not a medical professional, but I personally don't believe that interventions in getting Black women to go in for C-sections or to be induced and have like these particular types of hospital births is going to resolve the issues with our mortality rate during birth. That does not resolve medical racism. And this hyper caution almost takes away my autonomy. Because I went to maternal fetal medicine for my anatomy scan at 20 weeks, when my growth scan came around, I will say the ultrasound machine at the birthing center was like this stark difference between the anatomy scan you get. It really wasn't showing a whole lot. And my baby was measuring small, but natural beginnings only requires your baby to be 5 pounds in order to give birth at their center. And at the point when I did my growth scan there, I was over 5 pounds, but they couldn't see everything. So they sent me back to maternal fetal medicine just as a precaution. And I feel like that precaution really had more to do with my demographic. African-American woman over 34, so geriatric pregnancy. So they are sending me back to maternal fetal medicine, which is fine because it's a more in-depth ultrasound. And at that point, I had only had one ultrasound. So getting to see my baby again, cool. When I went back for my growth scan at MFM, I was over the ultrasounds at this point. But they, per my child's size, they then put in my medical record that I needed to come back in for ultrasounds every other week. Except for my child was proportional, he was just small. He's still small. There was nothing actually wrong. There was no growth restriction. There was no lack of nutrients coming in through the placenta. Like, he was fine. He just was a small baby. And he's long, he's just skinny. So I go back in for the other ultrasounds, and because at this point it's on my record that they're sending the records back to Natural Beginnings, every time I have a different doctor and who's reviewing my ultrasounds, and each doctor is trying to say, like, you should really consider coming into the hospital and being induced. You should really consider coming to the hospital being induced. And there was really no other reason for the suggestion other than my demographic. And so we came in for 2 more ultrasounds at MFN. I did one at 36 and then 38. And then at the 38 one, I did it at the top of the week, and I really did it at 37 and 6. And they were saying that I should come back in at 39 and 6 for my last MFM ultrasound, because they still were really pushing that I should consider being induced. And I said, yeah, I'm not gonna go back in for 39 and 6, because that's a day before my due date. At that point, everything's fine. There's been no issues. My kid's just on the smaller side, and he's also always asleep during the ultrasound, so I was like not getting any interesting pictures of him. I was very over it at this time. And then my mother gets here. My mom, who was going to be here for the first couple of weeks after I gave birth to help us transition into, newborn parents. My mom gets here at the beginning of March, and she is itching for her grandbaby to come out. And now I have another person in the house who is kind of pushing and prodding about all the things I need to be doing to get the baby out of me. And I also psychologically, having never experienced giving birth before, was getting antsy and having a hard time staving off, the pessimistic thoughts about how this pregnancy journey could go. I had a deep fear of possibly having a stillbirth. And I think part of my problem is being a collector of information, having too much information at my fingertips. I did not need to know all the things that I was thinking of or knew of, or all the possibilities of all the things, because all those possibilities and all those thoughts and things just festered into worries and concerns that were not based on anything. I had a hard time believing that I could really go upon this huge journey in my life and nothing go wrong. And part of that is this discourse around Black women's experience in the medical infrastructure that, like, how do I not have fibroids? How do I not have lupus? How do I not have these things? Like, something has to be wrong with me, and I'm just not getting enough medical care to actually know what's going wrong with me. And also because there is a certain amount of, like, they give all this caution and concern in one arena, but, like, your care as a pregnant woman, outside of the care and the care and concern around the child that you are holding within your womb, all your other medical care kind of significantly drops off. Like, everything gets redirected to your OBGYN. Oh, you want to talk about your antidepressants you're taking? OBGYN. You have other issues happening? OBGYN. Everything goes through now the OB team. And I felt like I was seeing a decrease in medical care when it came to me and my own medical concerns. And so I also felt like, well, maybe something isn't being looked into enough. Like, maybe something might, appear and be an issue, and I won't know it until I'm in the moment, and I can't and yeah, I had a hard time fully letting go. As much as I was really working and trying, and I would go to therapy every week to be present in the moment, I still had some lingering concerns about, can everything really be okay? It was a combination of the headspace that I was in, and then also being in a household where I had several people constantly, go for a walk every day, do the yoga ball. Are you doing this? Are you doing these stretches? Are you drinking this? Are you eating this? And also the anticipation, like, you get down to that last week. I don't know that I was tired of being pregnant, because now I'm on the other side of the 4th trimester. And, the 3rd trimester is actually way easier than the 4th trimester, let me tell you. But I don't know that I wasn't tired of being pregnant, but I was anxious to meet my child. And so we get to week 39 and I have no labor symptoms. There are no Braxton Hicks. There are no contractions. My kid is not dropping down lower. They're still sitting really high up in my uterus. And I'm getting antsy about, okay, my due date is coming around. And I know most first-time moms do not give birth on their due date, but nothing's going on. And, with that fear of having a stillbirth, I knew that the longer you go, or I had read that the longer you go, the higher your chance for that happening. And I was just like, I just want to do everything to make sure that I have a living, breathing child. Like, I just don't want to make the wrong decision. And so I ended up going back for that last ultrasound at maternal fetal medicine on 39 and 6. I was 39 weeks and 6 days. The one I said I wasn't going to go to because there really was no need. So I go to that one. And of course, again, you should consider being induced. You should consider being induced. Based off of what? Nothing. But the doctor said, okay, I hear that you want to have a water birth. I'm going to recommend that you can wait until 41 weeks, but I would not recommend you going past 41 weeks pregnant. Now, the birthing center, I believe, allows you to birth up until 42 weeks, 6 days. So up until you hit 43 weeks, you are allowed to give birth at the birthing center. I did not realize at the time that going for that last ultrasound at maternal fetal medicine and them giving that recommendation and putting it on my medical record shaved off 2 weeks from my allowance of giving birth at the birthing center. So, do the ultrasound. Everything is great. My kid is good. I was not dilating as we crossed over into week 40 of my pregnancy. And the birthing center, which at this point I'm going in for my appointments, week 40, I was going in every 2 days. After I had that appointment with MFM, they were pushing for me coming in and possibly having a midwife induction. And I didn't necessarily understand the way that they were asking me questions after that last MFM appointment. In hindsight, I realized what they were saying was, do you want to give birth at the birthing center? You got to figure out a way where you go into labor before 41 weeks so that you can give birth here. I did not realize until it was too late that recommendation by MFM changed my ability to give birth at the birthing center. And so I go in for an appointment on a Monday and they do a check and I have not dilated at all. And they're going over what my options are. And she said, you can just go home and wait, which is the best thing you can do now, but you're not even dilated enough for us to do a midwife induction. So at the birthing center, a midwife induction is just a Foley balloon or a catheter balloon. I don't know. They put the balloon thing up where it's one balloon in your cervix and one balloon in, don't give me the line about the anatomy. Whatever, is it in your uterus? And they fill it with saline water and that helps to get you dilated. And then they give you a castor oil concoction. And then you would come in the next day and hopefully that kickstarts some sort of labor. I'm trying to wrap this up because I feel like I want to over explain this portion of my labor and delivery experience because this was really what turned it all around. I go in after my appointment on Monday. I go back in on a Wednesday, and every day I go in, I'm getting a new midwife. And the first midwife had told me that, you needed to be dilated a certain amount in order for the catheter or the balloon to really work. And so when I go back in on Wednesday, they're kind of talking to me as if it's now or never. And they're talking to me about putting this balloon in. And I'm like, okay, well, am I dilated enough to make it make sense that I put the balloon in? And the midwife that I saw that day kind of just danced around the answer. And she was like, well, do you want to come back tomorrow? And I'm like, well, I don't know if I want to come back tomorrow. I'm trying to figure out, what can I do? What are really my options here? I didn't really understand why I was being questioned the way that I was being questioned. And so I keep asking, am I dilated enough for this catheter balloon to possibly work? And they were like, yeah, we can give it a try, but that doesn't answer am I dilated enough. So they go ahead and put it in. Yes, it's uncomfortable. But the thing that really screws us over is we went in the morning time. We do all this back and forth. They put the balloon in, and then they say, okay, well, now we need to do a stress test. And I did not realize that the determining factor in whether or not I would be able to deliver at the birthing center and have the water birth experience that I wanted to was my child passing a stress test. Nobody had explained the stress test to me. And I feel like if I had proper information about the stress test and what was needed to pass it, I would have come in later in the day and taken the test. As I said, I have a sleepy little guy. He's a sleepy little baby. Every time we went in for an ultrasound in the morning, my kid was asleep. He does not like to be stirred from his sleep. It was 10 o'clock in the morning. My guy is asleep. Even now, 10 o'clock in the morning, my guy is asleep. So I had a non-reactive stress test, I guess. It wasn't a decline. He just stayed at a steady heart rate. Nothing changed. Nothing went up. There was no contractions happening. Nothing. And so essentially, you do not have an active stress test. You fail it. And I had already got the balloon inserted into my cervix, which is very uncomfortable. I'm doing the stress test where I'm thinking, okay, the thing looks steady. We're all good. We're all great. And the midwife comes in and says, yeah, you have to go to the hospital. And I'm like, what do you mean I have to go to the hospital? Yeah, you have to go to the hospital because your stress test was non-reactive. And so we already called the hospital that you're going to go to. I didn't even get to choose the hospital I went to. They were like, we have a relationship with this hospital and these midwives. And so you're going to go to this hospital. We were already called and the midwife was already ready to accept you. So you're going to go to the hospital. Yeah, that was really it. So, I was upset. The other parent was upset. He was in the room with me and he's like, what do you mean? Why didn't anybody explain to us? And she was like, well, yeah, when you have a non-reactive stress test, that's just the way the cookie crumbles. And yeah, you got to go to the hospital. You know, the euphemism she made to explain, well, you just got to go to the hospital. Sorry, it's just the way it goes, really pissed off the other parent. He was very mad. I was at this point crying because I'm like, it felt like a clusterfuck. Is this not a big deal? Why is this so passe? Why are you just telling me this? And so it takes me a minute to kind of register that like my opportunity to have a water birth is absolutely positively not happening. We are 40 weeks and 4 days at this point, and I was just kind of stunned that it came down to this. And why didn't anybody tell me beforehand? And why weren't we properly informed? And like, we're just getting kicked out? And they were like, yeah, well, you know, MFM put the 41-week recommendation, so we can't let you have birth here after 41 weeks because it's in your medical record. So I went to the hospital. We went home, we packed a bag, and we went to the hospital. I will say, the midwife who took me in was a Black woman. Natural Beginnings, they have no Black people on staff. Baby, that was the whitest office I've ever been in. But when I get to Novant, the hospital, it was a Black midwife who took me in, and I was mad. And when I get mad, I'm not really one to want to talk much. I just kind of shut down, and I'm like, whatever. Whatever. And she was really trying to be empathetic. I will give it to her. She did a great job. You know, she was very much so trying to make me feel better. Honestly, though, we get to the hospital and the midwife does say, you know, if you want, you can go home and wait it out, or we can induce you and you can have a baby by this weekend. It was a whole lot of reasons why I just went ahead and said, you know, I don't want to go home and wait it out and then have to like wrap my head around having a home birth and then getting all the materials for that, because that's essentially was my only other option. That if I wanted to have a water birth, I was going to have to do it at home. And I wasn't really feeling so great about my doula relationship to like rely on that. And then I don't live close to a hospital. And it's just like so many variables. And this is my first time. I felt like for my first time experience, it was necessary that like I go through this in a medical setting. And so I elected to check into the hospital and start the induction process. And as much as the midwives really tried to make me feel good and make me feel like I had autonomy in the decisions in, you know, having the birth plan that I wanted to have, baby, yeah, my birth plan said no interventions. It said no epidural, no C-section. And the only thing I didn't do was a C-section. We get into the hospital and they start me on Cervidil, which is a pill you take to help you ripen the cervix, I guess. I'm not a medical professional. Don't be taking my word on exactly what these medications be doing. I took Cervidil. Also, they took out the catheter that the midwife at Natural Beginnings had put in me, the balloon. Now, this is what I forgot to say. When she put that balloon in me, the midwife who did it was just such a ditz. That entire experience of doing the stress test and getting that balloon inserted in me, and I was like, it doesn't feel right. It doesn't feel like it's properly inserted. They took it out and they were like, yeah, this wasn't properly placed in you. I just had something pushed in my cervix for no reason. And by the time I took it out, I wasn't very much dilated. And I took the Cervidil and I was at 4 centimeters dilated after 2 sessions of that. And I checked in on a Thursday. I gave birth on a Saturday. And after we do the Cervidil, the next midwife on shift basically comes in and says to me that we can keep with this slow induction process and you might be here for a whole week, or you can be here for another 2 days and we can do Pitocin. You know, medical bills, time, and my mama staring at me like, girl, I didn't come up here to spend time with you. I came up here to spend time with my grandchild. Definitely weighed heavily on my decision-making process. And the most compromise we could get is that they would slow roll my doses on Pitocin, because somehow my wild behind brain had the idea that I could be induced on Pitocin and still not have an epidural. I experienced the worst agony of my life, even though they were giving me half dosages like every 30 minutes. We got to dose number 6. I made it like 2-3 hours. And the pain, it was just, I have never felt such deep agony, such deep pain. Like, I already knew this was going to make me feral. I already knew that this experience, I was going to be out of body. It was going to be wild. But I just was not psychologically ready for the pain that Pitocin brings. And I had been so set on this idea that I was going to labor in the water. I was extraordinarily upset that I was not laboring in the water. I have an IV stuck in my hand, and that's the worst part of being in the hospital. You have to have an IV in your hand the whole time, and IVs are wildly uncomfortable. But I had all these like dingle dangles attached to me, all these monitors going on, and they let me get in the tub for a little bit, but like I couldn't be in the water for long. And I was trying to find relief. And Pitocin contractions, there's just no like breathing through them, baby. I tried to hypnobirthing. I listened to that little white lady book. I promise you, I tried to breathe through it. But Pitocin like hits you. It just feels like someone's like stabbing you and then dragging the knife across and then dropping it. And you get like 2-3 seconds of like, okay, my body is not in pain, and then the pain comes right back. There's no like ebb and flow. There's no like breathe through it and let out. It's like you're breathing through it, and as soon as you let out, the next contraction hits. And my body was just in a constant state of like holding on and bracing for the pain. It was just out of control. And I have no concept of time for how long I really held up with that. I know at some point the midwife offered me some drugs. And she said my options outside of an epidural, I don't remember the name of the drug, but she's like, it's not really going to relieve pain, but it's going to make you feel really high. I was like, girl, give it to me. Yeah. As I said in my previous video, I now understand why people are addicted to drugs, because whatever she gave me in my IV, that was the best high I have ever experienced in my entire life. It felt so good. And if I was in a place of continual trauma where like I could not wake up in the day and feel good about myself or my life, I understand why someone would chase a high like that. Because in that moment, it only gave me like 30-45 minutes of reprieve, and it felt so good, so great. And I was like, okay, as soon as it wore off, I was like, oh my gosh, I need more. Please bring it back. I just want to take a nap. I kept saying, I just want to sleep. I want to sleep. Because at this point I was exhausted. And the midwife had told me that you need to wait 3 hours in between dosages. So I make it through the 3 hours just like crying in agony, and I get the next dose and it does nothing. And I'm like, why am I still in so much pain? I'm not even a little bit high. And she says, oh, well, because your pain threshold got higher, and so it's not going to work as effectively as it did the first time. Why didn't you tell me that before you gave me the second dose? Because now I'm in here pissed, even madder, and I am in royal pain. And then I threw up. I am a person who has very, very painful periods. Like, I have excruciatingly painful cramps to the point where my body passes out if I do not take medicine in time to alleviate the pain. And typically before I pass out, I throw up. And so I take throwing up in the hospital on Pitocin, throwing up as a sign that I'm about to pass out, that my pain level has gotten so intense that my body's about to give out on me. And in my mind, I'm thinking, There's no point in holding out and not getting an epidural just to pass out, be put into a C-section, and having to get the epidural anyway. I'm like in tears. I am crying. I am in so much pain. They do a cervix check. I'm at 10 centimeters. Why I went that long? Did I get a cookie? Did I get a trophy? No, I got some sushi after I gave birth, but like, did I need to do all that? Considering how the epidural went, yeah, maybe it was good that I waited that long, because the first anesthesiologist comes in and she cannot figure out how to get it in my spine. She is back there just poking along, talking about stay still. Bitch, I am on Pitocin. The contractions are kicking in hard. I can't control that. My whole body is shaking in pain. And the other parent, like, I'm holding on to him, and his face is just falling apart. And it takes her like 45 minutes to do the epidural, and only one side is numb. Apparently, I have a tightly compacted spine. Is there anything I can do about it? They said no. The epidural was only hitting on my left side. I could still feel all the contractions on my right side. I was on my last string, okay? I'm still feeling all my pain, and they're just asking me, can you hold out? Can you hold out? Don't you think you'll make it? Don't you think you'll make it? And I'm like, I don't get the point of going through the epidural and it not doing what it's supposed to do 100% correctly. Redo it. And I was just like yelling for them to redo it. I guess, you know, when I went in for my 6-week checkup, I asked her for like the time between, because all this stuff just runs together for me. But I waited like another 3 hours, and the next anesthesiologist comes in and he redoes my epidural. And he does say, yes, your spine is in fact compact. It's really difficult to find the right spot to give it to you, but he found it. He found it. I thought that I slept for at least 6 hours. I woke up thinking that I had a refreshing night of slumber, because it was dark when he put it in and it was daylight when I woke up. And I felt good. I felt good, baby. I slept maybe 45 minutes. And I woke up. And as soon as I woke up, I felt my water break. Literally like a bag of water felt like it came out of my coochie mints. What the little feeling that I had left in it. And we were then in active labor. And I pushed for an hour and a half, and my baby was born. I feel like, I don't know if an hour and a half of like pushing was a long time, but I was a little resistant. If I could do it again, I would go back and take a class maybe, or do like a physical therapy around like how to push, because it's not innate. It's not something you just know how to do. And I kept crying. I just feel like I'm shitting. And I, in fact, you know, I don't know if next time I'm going to have my mother in the birthing room with me, because certain things about my birthing experience, I just really didn't need to know. I did not need confirmation that I was in fact, didn't need to know that, okay? But I didn't want to push, because I felt like I was, one, going to get a hemorrhoid, and two, that it was just pushing shit out. And they were like, no, can't you feel the head? It's right here, you're crowning. And I'm like, I feel something, but I also feel this, and I don't know, I don't want to push. I don't want to push. But I pushed him out, and it was a surreal experience. I still can't believe that I did that. Do you forget the pain after? No. I don't know that you truly forget the pain, but I think if you are on a path that you chose to be on, and a journey into parenthood that you chose to take up, that the joy of succeeding in that is so overwhelming that you don't hold on to the exact feeling of pain. Really, I don't have words for what I felt, because it's, even with the epidural, I still felt something, and it was like an extreme amount of discomfort. I just did it, and it was done, and it happened, and I'm grateful. Even though I did not have the birthing experience that I wanted, I have the healthy child that I wanted. So I'm not hung up on the things that I lost in the personal experience that I wanted to have for myself. Because the thing I wanted the most was the thing that I got. And as much as I wish that I was given more autonomy, that I was given more information from the right people in the times when I needed in order to make the right judgment calls, I did all the things I did rooted in the idea that I wanted a healthy child. I know I had a lot of negative things to say, and a lot of things didn't go my way, but I'm still just like, I wake up every morning with such deep gratitude. Like, even in the exhaustion, even in the tiredness, like, it's about to be 2 a.m. and I'm gonna probably not sleep tonight, to be honest. I still gotta pump. I still gotta, take care of myself and take care of a kid. I'm still just like so happy and delighted and joyful, to be here. I look at my baby's face. He looks nothing like me. But I still look at him every day because I grew him in my belly. He might not visually look like me, but he has a huge piece of me. And he has a huge piece of my heart. And I'm so happy. I love my little guy. And if I do this again, maybe I won't be living in North Carolina. And I'll have better access to more birthing center options. And I can do the water birth. If I do it again, I do want to try for the unmedicated water birth. I really would like to have that experience. But, I'm part of the Pitocin induced crowd. I will never, ever, ever again do Pitocin, though. No, ma'am. No me, no way. But if you made it this far, I hope some part of me sharing my journey was helpful to a broader dialogue. It meant something to somebody. And really, thank you to Care Of. Thank y'all for sponsoring this video and keeping me and my baby healthy with my prenatal pack. I appreciate the love and I appreciate the sponsorship. Use my code to get 50% off your first purchase with Care Of. See you on the other side. Deuces.